a secret. Anyway, moving on. We have Maggie McCauley. She is here to talk about dispatch. Again, state your name, you'll have 3 minutes.
Commissioners, Mayor, Acting City Manager Hernandez. When I left TBRDA, I left to take a position that afforded me an opportunity that many wouldn't normally have in this town, to make more money with less stress. However, the reality of why I left stems from poor leadership, lack of communication, and alienation as a result of the merger of APD and OCSO dispatch. I had applied for multiple different positions within the dispatch center: operations manager, training coordinator, and floor supervisor. It took me multiple weeks to hear back about any results for the ops manager or the training coordinator's positions. I was then told I was not selected for either, even though I was told from a very reliable source I was one of the highest interviewers. I then applied for the floor position because John Barney had urged me to do so. He said, I still want you as a leadership position. I was then not selected for the floor position with no explanation as to why. After multiple questionings of, hey, why did this not happen? I had to text him to find out the results. He was in dispatch. I asked him, hey, dude, have we heard anything? Can you update us? He then proceeded to leave dispatch, and I had to text him, find out in a text, no, you were not selected. He was just there at APD 60 seconds prior. I also have those texts if you'd like to see them. When we found out who the supervisors were, I was met with shock. There were people that were selected that definitely should have been a supervisor, and still are to this day, that are wonderful supervisors. There were other people that were selected that are questionable. Some seem to be a shoo-in, some seem to be a lack of communication between APD and the SO. I will tell you that John spent 99% of his time with the OCSO dispatch and only occasionally stopped into APD. At that point, we were rapid-fired a slew of information to 1 or 2 of us that were there actively working the radios and expected to relay it back to everybody else in dispatch. We were referred to and thought of as the ugly stepchildren. When we went to the new center, there was not a sense of unity that we were promised. There was no true attempt to learn how APD was functioning. There was no attempt to sit with any dispatchers who could actually teach him and show him how we did things and why we did them. It's also my understanding you are required to be certified in the state of New Mexico within 365 days of your job placement. His contract stated 9 months. He is still, to this day, 2 years later, not certified. I loved my job. I truly thought it was going to be a career for me. I loved doing and helping everybody on the other side of the radio. I did not leave dispatch because I couldn't handle it. I left dispatch because of a lack of communication, lack of leadership, and the unwillingness to learn from anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next we have, is it Michaela? Okay, Michaela Finnegan. How are you?
So I am Michaela Finnegan. I'm here to speak on item number 11, approval of the city of Alamogordo withdrawing from the TBRÐA Basin Regional Dispatch Authority. I am a former APD and TBRDA dispatcher who was forced to resign 1 year after the merger took place when I refused to be bullied and threatened into abandoning my 2-year-old daughter to appease TBRDA Director John Barney's wishes. Multiple hostile work environment complaints were made against Barney by myself and others due to that and a variety of other issues, all of them written off as unfounded by the county. I could easily stand here all evening speaking on those issues and the ridiculous policies and procedures put into place to make dispatch life significantly harder, but there are more pressing issues to talk about. The city and Cloudcroft members of the TBRDA board have been continuously undermined and manipulated by the county. The most current circumstances being that the county purposely canceled 5 TBRDA board meetings in a row to prevent the discussion and voting on the renewal of John Barney's employment contract in order for County Manager Pamela Heltner to renew his contract last week without board approval. County Attorney R.B. Nichols allowed this renewal, knowing the county didn't have the authority to renew his contract, Ms. Nichols has signed the joint powers agreement that clearly states the board is responsible for hiring and supervising the director. By allowing the renewal, Nichols and Heltner are claiming the county has a right to override the JPA and appoint whomever they want without input. If the board were to vote, the contract renewal would not have happened as there was a majority prepared to vote against it. By continuing with this relationship, the city is putting itself at a high risk for a lawsuit, as the county has made it clear they have a blatant disregard for state law. The county has not only supported, but encouraged the continuous breaking of the law by allowing Barney to remain on the dispatch floor, answering calls and working a radio channel. Barney has refused to get his New Mexico skill dispatch certification for the past 2 years, despite attending a variety of other events that are not required. His contract clearly states he has 9 months from his hire date, and according to state law, 1 year from the hire date to complete the academy. The county attorney, R.V. Nichols, clearly stated at the last TBRDA board meeting that the county allows for its employees to occasionally break the law when it's most convenient for them. This puts the city in a bad position since it is the city that pays the majority of the financial cost into TBRDA and would, I would assume, therefore be liable for the majority of the cost of a lawsuit against TBRDA. Let's not forget that prior to the merger, the city was paying less than $900,000 into dispatch a year and had maintained many dispatchers for years. The city is now responsible for 60% of over $4 million budget estimated for TBRDA, and the turnaround rate is so high that at one point there were multiple dispatchers working to cover shifts. Multiple travel dispatchers working to cover shifts because of poor management that ran off most of the employees. The most compelling reason to take back dispatch is the safety of our citizens as well as our first responders. Ask any officer that's been in service for longer than 2 years if they feel the same care and support from their dispatchers as they did prior to the merger. Do they know that they aren't just a faceless badge number that's going to be forgotten on a call? It's time for the city to step up and take back your dispatch center, your employees, and take control of the safety of your officers and your citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rachel Craig.
Hi, I'm Rachel Craig, and I was a TBRDA dispatcher and an EPD dispatcher for just shy of 2 years. I left when they asked me to choose between my child and my job, a job which I adored. You don't get into dispatching because you think it sounds fun. It's extremely stressful, and anybody that chooses to do it for more than 6 months does it because they want to, because they love it. When you call 911, we're the people that answer the phone. We get you the people to help you be safe, to help save your life, to pull you out of a burning building, to help you when somebody's not breathing. And because of the poor leadership, the inconsistencies in policies, and just not prioritizing people, they've run off multiple certified dispatchers with experience, and we would all go back in a heartbeat if the city took it back. The policies were inconsistent. The board was supposed to be governing that, but policies were changed monthly, if not weekly, and we were required to sign them, and if we didn't sign them, it didn't mean anything. You were still required to comply. If somebody wore the wrong kind of shoes, a new policy was written for you to comply with the correct shoes. There were locks put on the light switches. We were treated like children, chained to our desks by our headsets, and treated like lesser people, given short breaks to go to the bathroom and told no if something else was happening, which any dispatcher can tell you, we prioritize what's going on. And so to have left a job that we all adored because one tyrannical person decided to belittle us and minimize our responsibilities to our children, to our families, we left. We all found jobs that we enjoy, but we would go back to dispatching in a heartbeat because it's where our heart is. It's what we love. And if the city took dispatch back, we would all be there in a heartbeat. And I thank you all so much for your time.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you not get a special recognition?
I did. I was dispatcher of the year for 2023.
Dispatcher of the year for 2023. I
And I was told that if I didn't go to night shift, that I would be fired. And I told them that because of my son's separation anxiety and that I couldn't do nights because I couldn't be there if he woke up in the middle of the night, couldn't not be there for him. He has separation anxiety and abandonment issues. And they told me,
Did you make
tough luck.
arrangements for that?
Did I make arrangements? Well, I have a husband and my mom is amazing, but he's still,
I mean, to
Struggle
switch
with
shifts with somebody.
yeah, somebody did actually offer to go tonight so that I could remain on days and they were told no. So I left.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Kyle, whose name I cannot pronounce. Is it Meisbauer?
Miesbauer.
Meisbauer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
I
okay.
got the Bauer part right.
You sure did. Sorry I can't provide eye contact while I read this. So my name's Kyle Miesbauer, I work for the city of Alamogordo. Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of my personal experience as well as the men and women of TBRDA who are too afraid to come forward due to proven retaliation. I'd like to begin by sharing my story involving TBRDA. After 13 years of honorable and decorated service in the United States Air Force, I joined TBRDA to continue serving my community as a training coordinator in September of 2024. During my time with TBRDA, Mr. Barney routinely made disparaging and cruel remarks about the staff members and city board members, such as Chief Kunihiro and our assistant city manager. This type of behavior from experience, seeing it in the military, can foster defiance by staff members towards their chain of command regarding working for the city. Additionally, Mr. Barney would routinely show favoritism towards certain employees he considered his friends and would mistreat others who weren't, like Mrs. Craig said. After 4 weeks of service, I was terminated by John Barney with 0 verbal or written warnings for, and I quote, not following commands, unwilling to learn, and unprofessional behavior. All of which were not supported by the 20+ pages of documentation and witness statements that I provided to the HR director and county manager. I've since learned that my claims were not thoroughly investigated. Rather, the county manager gave Mr. Barney carte blanche until he attempted to fire somebody else, who was then told he was no longer warranted firing people without due course. These claims made against me are disrespectful and insulting to me as a disabled veteran that sacrificed 13 years of service for our nation. I would not have gotten where I am if I didn't follow commands, act professional, and I refuse to learn. Since being terminated from TBRDA, several dispatchers have privately approached me with their concerns for the direction of the agency, often providing astonishing proof to back up their claims. The following list is a small sample, since I only have 50 seconds, of what I've been told. Mr. Barney shows favoritism to certain employees. Nowhere is this more apparent than when Mr. Barney had one of the contract dispatchers living at his private residence. This contract dispatcher was routinely given preferential treatment on the schedule despite routinely making errors over the radios. Mr. Barney frivolously spends money on redundant programs that did not improve the quality of dispatch capabilities. Mr. Barney is never around. He spends much of his time and resources going to training and conferences to better himself, not the agency. And he couldn't be bothered to go to the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy. Mr. Barney has retaliated repeatedly against staff members when they report their concerns to HR. Rather than addressing the issue, the county protects him by telling employees, and this is a true statement, that they will not investigate the issues unless the employee transfers out of TBRDA.
I have to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I have evidence to back up those claims. If the board would like to see those, thank you for your time.
And I'm sorry, where are you working now?
The city of Alamogordo,
Thank you.
HR department.
I heard you're doing a phenomenal job. Their loss, our gain, right? All right, Holly Gamble.
Hi, good evening. My name's Holly Campbell. A few years ago, I was actually hired by the county as a dispatcher. I trained at the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy in Santa Fe, where I did get my certification. I graduated as valedictorian of a large statewide class, which was a goal that I set because I wanted to represent this region with excellence. And when TBRDA formed, I continued as a dispatcher under the merged structure. So I was serving both the city and the county during my time with them. I ended up consistently having to refuse to lie about and undermine my coworkers, specifically former city dispatchers, despite incessant pressure from leadership to do so. The day following the grievance hearing regarding that issue, I was terminated. So just with that context in mind, I want to address something that might seem like an isolated fire department issue on the surface, but I think it's actually a perfect example of why withdrawal is necessary. The fire department has raised a lot of the same concerns that dispatchers like myself have been bringing up since the very beginning. And while we were written up for bringing these things up or put on punitive probationary plans, with really tight restrictions and labeled insubordinate for pointing out avoidable problems, the fire department was also being kept in the dark, undermined with bad data, and made to beg for basic information that we had. And that same dismissive attitude toward the city in general now I think kind of permeates the entire 911 center, because when brand new dispatchers are mocking city leaders openly in recent board meetings, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's a culture of contempt, and it's sustained by TBRDA's leadership. I don't think anybody wanted this to fail. I think that everybody came together to hopefully make this work, and I commend those in city leadership who are willing to cut losses and prioritize safety over pride. It's not ethical to keep enabling dysfunction just to avoid conflict. I strongly support withdrawal, and I thank you all for at least taking it seriously and taking it into consideration.
Thank you. That's it. We are gonna move on to the city manager's report.
That was a lot. Just want to say thank you guys for sharing your story. I know that probably wasn't easy to sit in front of us, so I just want to say thank you for that. As far as a city manager report, I'll just keep it kind of brief. Since our last meeting, we've had 4 projects that have been completed. Of course, the Hubbard Bridge, our cemetery wall has been completed, both our bridge and public works basins have been completed, and our New York WSRP has been completed, and that is the sewer and water replacement piece of it. The great blocks piece that deals with the streets and the sidewalks, that is still on, but the utilities piece is done. I just wanted to address 10th and Washington. We don't have a definitive answer for you, but we plan to have a definitive, at least more answers for you in the next couple of weeks as we continue to meet with DOT and we continue to meet with engineers, so that we can at least give you a better timeline and possibly solutions for what we're gonna do on the 10th and Washington Bridge. And then you're probably tired of me saying this because I probably have said too much, but I just want to put a friendly reminder as we have more and more projects going out, as they get advertised, it's very important that any questions, once they're advertised to when it's awarded or open, that all of those need to go directly to the purchasing office. They can't go to the commission because that will disqualify them from participating in the proposal. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Okay, we are gonna move on to remarks and inquiries by the city commission. Does anybody have anything?
The pictures I sent you yesterday, Steph, you got them?
Yes, I replied to your email. I can give you an update. I was a little shocked as I also gave Commissioner Tapley, since that's in his district, a little update just for the rest of the commission. So the golf course, they were pouring pads for the windmills. The windmills are there to help aerate the ponds. I didn't realize the conditions that they were in until Commissioner Burnett sent us the pictures, which kind of shocked us. We stopped the project this morning. We told them, I had engineering go out there and inspectors go out there. Staff had actually poured those, golf staff had poured them. I talked to Belinda, we put a stop to the project. More than likely we are going to tear them out. I talked to Grant. He says that he's in favor of the windmills. If he would just want a little communication or say where the location is, I told him we will coordinate a communication with him and we will try to see if we can roll this into the big irrigation project. But we'll definitely have a certified contractor moving forward on that. And I guess I didn't realize how bad they were. When Grant told me they were aesthetically not pleasing, I did not quite understand what he meant until I saw the picture. So that was the update that I had emailed to you.
I just wanted to say, if anybody is interested, Main Street is moving along well. And this past, I guess the convention that, the staff went to in Philadelphia, Claudia Loya was, named, or she received the Mary Means Leadership Award. And this was the first time that a volunteer received that award. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that Main Street is alive and well, even though there are some things that are happening down there, like, you know, the makeover. So there are things that they ask that people come down and shop. The doors are open, even if you have to go into the back way. We are also working on the murals for the west side of the alley. We did two of the, what do you call those, shipment containers. We actually did the base coat, and then they're gonna be painted tomorrow. And the murals are gonna be set up to start this weekend. So there are a couple of things that you, while you're out, if you're able to go by and see this, give them a shout, honk your horn, or something like that. Tell them, atta-girl, atta-boy, and just let them know that we are supporting them because they are moving along. I have several items on here, but like I said, due to the time, I will talk about it the next time. Thank you.
I would have waited, honest. I was gonna talk about Claudia, but you mentioned that, and I do wanna try to have her at the next meeting, so, I apologize. I was in Colorado for the Easter weekend, taking texts and calls. Anyway, but it was really supposed to be with my grandbabies, but whatever, that's okay. Anyway, I do have something, Rachel, I'm sorry, but I did remember this, and I'm just gonna do this really, really quick, because I remember when, okay, so I got an email from somebody that, somebody has a work anniversary, and, for those of you who don't know or don't understand how our form of government works, Stephanie is actually our only employee as well, because she's the acting city manager, but city manager is the commission's only employee, and apparently she has an anniversary. I cannot believe it's only been 5 years. That's incredible to me. So that's what this is. I cannot figure out why this was at my seat, but now I remember.
So technically, it's been 6 years, they're here behind me.
Oh, you should probably have a word with somebody.
March of 2019.
Listen, I don't make the certificates. I'm just so apparently your Applebee's gift card is a year behind you. So, congratulations.
Half price appetizers.
I'm sorry, I could not figure out why that certificate was at my seat, but I do think I remember somewhere in the distant past having a conversation about that. So congratulations on either 5 years or 6 years or whatever it is. I'm impressed, actually, so. Anyway, okay, we're gonna move on. If nobody has anything else, sorry. If nobody, I thought it was FaceTiming, it's bad timing. If anybody else has anything, no? All right, we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. We are pulling item 3, 5, and 9. Is that correct? Is that correct, Rachel? 3, 5, and 9. You said 3, right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna remove item 3, 5, and 9 from the consent agenda. Who is pulling 9? Is that?
Crystal.
Crystal? Okay, I'm assuming to recuse?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm assuming 5 is to recuse?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I apologize. All right, and Rachel has to fix something with item 3. So do I have a motion to approve item 4, 6, 7, and 8 from the consent agenda, or on the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Robinson. Do I have a second? A second from Commissioner Reardon. Can we put up the vote, please? Okay, and motion passes 7-0. we will move on to items removed from the consent agenda. I believe Commissioner Burnett, you're gonna recuse yourself from item 5?
Correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on item 5?
Can we do item 3 first?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were going back to that later. So you wanna do item 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with corrections.
Yes, so,
Okay, I apologize, I thought we were gonna bring that back later, sorry.
yes, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Commissioners, I just pulled this off of the consent agenda, the minutes, just to make 2 corrections. It's gonna be on the spelling of 2 names, and that are the names of the new city attorney, and the other one is under public comment. I believe it's Ms. Gorbarchet. It was just misspelled, so those spellings will be corrected.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, do I have a motion to approve item 3?
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Robinson, do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, can we put up the vote, please? And motion passes 7-0. We're gonna move on to item 5. Anybody have any?
One quick question on
Okay.
this. It doesn't have a dollar amount. What, is it vary or is there a cap or?
You were ready, weren't you?
I was. Good evening, everyone. What was your question?
Just on that RFP, there's no dollar amount listed on here. Is there a cap on it, of how much per year, or is it just on, I know it's an on-call type deal.
No cap, it's an on-call, you imagine,
So they could, we needed, they could go all the way to $1 million a year.
exactly.
Only if it's in the budget.
What's that?
Only if it's in their budget.
Only if
They have the money.
Okay. We do proposals like that, but we don't have a dollar, like a fiscal impact.
Mostly through an on-call process.
Thank you. Thank you.
No more questions?
Anybody else? Okay, with that, do I have a motion to approve item 5?
So moved.
A motion from Commissioner Robinson, do I have a second? Second. A second from Commissioner Guthrie, can we put up the vote, please? Commissioner Burnett is recusing himself. And motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstention. We're gonna move on to item 9. Does anybody have any questions on item 9? Okay, and Commissioner Guthrie, you're recusing yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Can we put up the vote, or I'm sorry, do I have a motion to approve item 9?
So moved.
A motion from Commissioner Robinson, do I have a second? A second from Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, can we put up the vote, please? And motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstention. We're gonna move on to, new business, item 10, consider and act upon ordinance 1715 for first publication. Repealing ordinance 1557 pertaining to the approval of a local economic development project for secured financial assistance proposed by pre-check. And City Attorney Ashley Smith has some information for us on that.
Your, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Commissioners, I'm actually gonna let, Kevin, talk about this.
Okay. So this is Kevin Wilson and Jim Lucero from New Mexico Economic Development Department.
Thank you, City Attorney
You
Smith.
can pull that up if you want.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Commissioners. As repeated by Ms. Smith, my name is Kevin Wilson. I am one of the 2 regional reps for Region 6, which is the southeast area of the state for the New Mexico Economic Development Department's regional rep team. We're basically the boots on the ground for the department, and we report to Santa Fe, but we live in the regions we serve. I live in Roswell, and Jim lives in Portales. And Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, thank you for your remarks. Main Street does fall under our umbrella. We're very happy with what Claudia has done, and we're also very happy with what Nolan's doing as the Main Street Director here. But the reason we're here today, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, is a little bit of housekeeping. We want to take the original ordinance off of your rolls. We need to close out the project, and by statute, we need to pass a repealing ordinance to do so. And I do have a little bit of information just on the investment that we made with the state. We did a $100,000 investment back in 2018. We did see state GRTs of $573,345, a net state benefit of $1.728 million, and a return on investment of 1,628%. If my retirement was doing that well, I would not be standing here right now. Jim, do you have anything to add?
No, this is just a housekeeping thing, to get this off your rolls and refill this ordinance from the pre-check award. Do you have any questions, please?
Does anybody have any questions?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 1557, or wait, it's ordinance 1715, sorry.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Rudin to approve item 10. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Burnett. Can we put up the vote, please? And motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, we're gonna move on to item 11. Consider and act upon approving the City of Alamogordo withdrawing from the TBRÐA Basin Regional Dispatch Authority in accordance with the Joint Powers Agreement. I'm not sure where you want to start with this.
I would defer to the chief and the deputy chief at this point. I think that's a good place to start.
Okay, so if we can have, yes. Chief Ramirez, Deputy Chief Glidden, thank you.
Hello, Ms. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Chief couldn't be here today. So he wrote an essay for me to read to you guys. So, I'll just get right into it. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commission. Please accept my sincere regrets as I am unable to attend this evening's meeting while attending a family member's medical needs. I want to take a moment to share my experiences and thoughts concerning the Tularosa Basin Regional Dispatch Authority. In August of 2023, all the dispatchers who were working out of the dispatch center at Alamogordo PD physically moved in what is known today as TBRDA. I am aware that there are reservations and anxiety as the move was a big change. Changing employers, changing the norm. We are creatures of habit, and change is not easy. With that being said, I was optimistic that the formation of our local PSAP was going to be successful. I remain optimistic about TBRDA's potential for success, though I do have some concerns. Specifically, I am uneasy about how certain matters have recently been handled by Madero County, as well as about the current director's professionalism when it comes to effectively managing and leading the organization. That said, I want to emphasize that from my perspective, Director Barney demonstrates a strong depth of knowledge and experience in PSAP operations and the technical requirements essential for running a successful 911 center. My concerns come from continued conversations with former and current TBRDA employees, in addition to conversation with some of the TBRDA board members. So concerns regarding Director Barney's open criticism of the City of Alamogordo to subordinates and the city's alleged attempts to prevent TBRDA from success. Concerns of his do as I say, not as I do mentality. The inconsistency of do as I say, not as I do, has caused confusion and frustration among staff. Employees are expected to follow specific standards and protocols that seem to be selectively enforced. This type of leadership has undeniably impacted morale contributing to a notable increase in turnover within the organization, as shown. Concerns that Director Barney is in breach of his employment agreement, as he has yet to obtain his New Mexico telecommunicators certification. So some members of Otero County argue that his national level certification and the state of New Mexico is not complying with its own administrative code by failing to offer the 2-week certification by waiver course. However, Director Barney was given a verbal direction years ago from TBRDA board to complete the full 3-week certification. These same members contend that Director Barney was unable to dedicate 3 weeks to attend the academy, despite the fact that he attended more training both in and out of state than all the subordinates combined over the last year. Additionally, some argue that certification is not required to serve as a director of PSAC. While this is technically true, this only applies to the director if he is not actively working on the dispatch floor, answering calls or handling radio traffic. As of the last board meeting, Director Barney was still performing those duties, which would be in direct violation of New Mexico law. Other concerns that the Joint Powers Agreement only gave TBRDA board members the ability to hire and supervise the director and not take action against the director or even remove the director if necessary. Concerns that during the last TBRDA meeting, the last TBRDA board meeting, the Otero County Manager, Pamela Heltner, agreed to consider amending the current contract between the Otero County and the director. As requested from Ms. Heltner, emails containing thoughts on how to better the Joint Powers Agreement and contract were sent to her. Concerns that the Joint Powers Agreement and the director's contract was to be discussed at the April 17th board meeting, but was mysteriously canceled a few days prior. Concerns that Ms. Heltner sent an email on April 16th indicating she had renewed Director Barney's contract despite knowing that there were concerns from the city and the Cloud Rock board members. Concerns that the county attorney, R.B. Nichols, sent an email the evening prior to the last board meeting stating, and I quote, "I think it is vitally important for the TBRDA board members to understand that their vote is only a recommendation. Director Barney's contract is with Otero County, and per the operating framework of TBRDA final employment determines operating framework of TBRDA's final employment determinations fall under the purview of the county." Basically leads us to believe that TBRDA is not a partnership. It has become increasingly clear that the future success or failure of the organization is currently being determined by Otero County, rather than by the board comprised of its intended stakeholders. If Pamela Heltner and others making decisions on behalf of Otero County are unwilling to revise the existing Joint Powers Agreement to grant TBRDA board members full authority to hire, supervise, and if necessary, terminate the 911 director, then I, as in Chief Kunihiro, would support the city's separation from TBRDA. The city has invested millions of taxpayers' dollars into this organization and should not continue to fund an entity over which has no meaningful oversight or control. In my view, continuing to do so would represent a misuse of public funds. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, esteemed citizens of the community. So, just reading to echo what has been said tonight about the separation from TBRDA, I just want to actually kind of verbalize this here. A true public servant is someone who helps others with honesty, respect, hard work, knowing actions make a difference for the whole community. So this is a standard that was designed by TBRDA for dispatching employees there, which basically goes into purpose, standards. What is a true public servant? Key principles of public service: put citizens first, be responsible, reliable, maintain professionalism and respect, recognize every call's importance. Dispatchers serve as the vital link between citizens in crisis and the first responders who provide assistance. Their actions guided by professionalism, compassion, and composure are critical to ensuring public safety. So I say that to echo what was discussed earlier this evening by past employees of TBRDA. Going forward, as the fire chief for the Alamogordo Fire Department, to echo what was said earlier, we, as the fire department, have not seen a completion, a certification, a certified dispatcher, or getting the correct dispatch information. I've got numerous calls here, including ones that happened at 1:40 this morning, Saturday evening, it was in a county, it was a fall victim that happened in the county up in, off of 54. Again, the information that was construed over the airwaves for first responders to get up there was not accurate. And so again, when questioned on that, basically we get pushed to the side. I also have an email here that was presented by R.B. Nichols that clearly states critics also claim Barney failed to provide, critics being the city board members, failed to provide a dedicated dispatcher for the Alamogordo Fire Department, AFD. No formal board action has addressed this, and day-to-day operations arguably fall outside the board's scope. Even so, a thoughtful discussion on mission, need, efficiency, and resource use would show a dedicated AFD dispatcher isn't practical. Data from January 1, 2025 to today reveals AFD averages 1.79 calls. So as I continue to go forth with the remaining conversation on this, this right here is actually AFD's total calls for the fiscal year of 2024. 1,761 calls. We are not a medical service at this moment. We are in the process of getting EMT certified through the Alamogordo Fire Department. So this is consistent of fire calls, car crashes, vehicle fires, fire alarms, hazmat incidents, and so forth. So going forward with just the most current months, 90 days of the fiscal year 2025, from January to mid-April now, we are most currently at 536 calls. So to go back to the 1.79 calls daily that was assumed here, that we run only 1.79 calls is not true. Less than an hour of work, leaving a dedicated dispatcher idle and inefficient, a shared dispatcher handling AFD and other agencies, example AMR, Otero County Fire, could manage 5 to 10 calls daily, 2 to 4 hours, matching industry norms. So going forward with this, I was also informed now that TBRDA has now taken on Tularosa, Mescalero, Cloudcroft, and I was informed that under the fire aspect, they were to provide for Mescalero their own dispatchers. That is also not true. The dispatchers that currently work in TBRDA are now being taxed to dispatch for those calls also within the county. So again, I say, why are we being pushed to the side and not getting the correct information? This is a 2.5 year issue that we have fought. Again, I've met with John Barney personally, within my office, in his office. I've met with Dr. Hernandez. We both had discussions with him, talking about when is this going to change? When are we going to see a change in difference? And I can tell you by talking to the current dispatchers, they're forced to be put into these positions to dispatch for city fire. Maybe that's not in their standard organization that they have for the day, but they're taxed by being placed in there to dispatch. And again, without the proper training, there is a difference between law enforcement dispatching and fire dispatching. We've asked Mr. Barney himself, when is that going to be completed? And I have no answer, and I have still no answer to receive from him on that. So going forth with this, my recommendation is as a city member, as a director of the Alamogordo Fire Department, we do pull back from TBRDA. I have calls for reference for you folks to see, to go consistent over and over, that clearly documents the mishaps that happen from the inconsistencies that happen on a daily basis. Thank you.
So,
Mayor Pro Tem Commissioners, I just want to emphasize that we have tried. I have individually met with them. The budget is always a huge concern because they have a $4.2 million budget. And just to put that in perspective, the only department in the city of Alamogordo that has a $4.2 million budget or more is the Alamogordo Police Department. And they have almost 100 personnel. Dispatch has about 20. And that was always my concern. So I'm not gonna bore you with the numbers because at the end of the day, I just wanna emphasize, we have tried. Chief Bunihiro has tried, Chief Ramirez has tried, I have tried. We are promised one thing on a face-to-face, and when we get in, nothing has really changed. As Chief Ramirez has said, fire dispatch and police dispatch are completely separate, different animals, and the dispatchers are not trained on fire dispatch. So when you have, and I'm not blaming the dispatchers, when they're giving incorrect information, it's because the leadership has failed to provide them the tools to properly dispatch for the fire department, which puts the citizens of Alamogordo in jeopardy. And just to kind of summarize the timeline, even after the county attorney's letter, I was still very optimistic that we could get through this if we could update the JPA, if we could update the contract, if they would accept our changes to it. I was so optimistic, okay? You know, my glass is always half full. And when the email came in from County Manager Heltner basically saying our concerns were not relevant, and it felt like a slap in the face to the city. And I know this wasn't said, but this is what it felt like. Shut up, sit down, hand us our check, and let us do our thing. And I know that's not what was said, and I'm paraphrasing, but honestly, if you know me, I always have something to say. When that email came in, I had nothing to say. And so just to summarize some of the events that kind of led up to this original discussion was gonna be a discussion, not an action item. So, you know, I just wanna say that we met in October and they kept canceling all the way through March.
Sorry.
No, that's good.
Kind of reading out loud.
No, you're fine. I just know that sometimes when you guys talk in the background, the YouTube picks it up and they can't hear what I'm saying. So I just want to make sure that I put this on the record. So in October, we had our last meeting and they kept canceling it and canceling it until the mayor said, after 5 cancellations, that we need to have a meeting. That finally a special meeting was held on March 27th to begin addressing some of the critical issues that kept being put off, including the astronomical budget, and then there was an executive session to discuss. And I just want to make it clear, we weren't asking for Director Barney's termination. His contract was up. We were asking not to renew it, just for clarification. We were not after Director Barney. We just thought that he had served his purpose and now we needed a new leadership in the role. And so in that executive session, they were supposed to speak about that. So on April 2nd, after the March 27th, they called a special meeting on April the 3rd. On April the 2nd, that is when we received a letter from the county attorney, which I won't go into again, but it basically says that our vote is a recommendation. Director Barney's contract is with Otero County, and per the operating framework, final employment determination falls under the county. That combined with everything that we have brought up, the letter specifically said why it's not an issue and why they won't be addressing it. The next day, we had the April 3rd meeting. We had an exhaustive conversation, and basically at the end of that, Chief Kunihiro asked, and this is why I was hopeful, Chief Kunihiro asked, are you willing to accept city's recommendation on the contract and the JPA? And without hesitation, they said yes, as long as we provide the comments by a certain time so that we can discuss it on the regularly scheduled board meeting on April 17th. So we did that. We provided the comments in plenty of time. So on April 10th,
this is before the meeting, after we submitted our comments, I received a request for an executive session from Pamela Heltner to have both governing bodies, the city commission and the county commission, in executive session. After doing a lot of research, I responded that I felt that this could not be an executive session, and if it could be done in an open meeting. That was on a Friday. I didn't receive anything over the weekend, that's fine. On Monday, instead of reaching out to my email and saying, yes, you know, we're willing to have an open meeting, instead we got notification that the April 17th meeting was going to be canceled until further notice, basically until we had the joint meeting, and that was concluded. Keeping in mind, we gave our comments about the change in the changes we would like to see. A unilateral decision was made by the county, and these letters and emails are in their packet, informing the board that she has renewed Director Barney's contract and completely dismissing the concern and bypassing the board's prior agreement to discuss the amendments. So at the end of the day, I just want to reiterate, this is not personal. I actually like Barney. I have sat with him. I think that he is a very intelligent man. I truly believe that he was here for a purpose, and that purpose was to help join the dispatchers. I feel that his time is up. I feel that he lacks leadership. I do believe he does plays favoritism. We see it at the board level. So I have no doubt that he does it with his subordinates. All the operational issues that were addressed by APD and AFD, and we have plenty of examples, but at the end of the day, the board members felt that it was in the best interest of the citizens of Alamogordo that we bring it to you to ask permission to withdraw from the TBRDA in accordance with the JPA. I also want to just, you know me, I gotta throw some budget stuff in there. Our issue is about the citizens of Alamogordo. Our citizens of Alamogordo live in Otero County. We are the biggest incorporated city in the county. Our citizens pay county taxes. Our citizens pay city taxes. They are already paying double for the service that they are not getting. I think it is incumbent upon us to make sure that the citizens of Alamogordo are taken care of, because they are not just paying once, they are paying twice for the city, for the service. They are paying, in my estimate, they are paying more than most of the other communities that are getting served, like Tularosa, Cloudcroft, Mescalero. So with that, I am going to, I don't know if the mayor wants to say anything else, but I do believe that there is no meaningful input taken serious from the city. And I think that we should bring dispatch back, because it serves our citizens and it serves our public safety, both fire and APD. And by not doing so, we're not just putting the citizens in danger, we're putting our public servants in danger, where we're asking them to do this. And so I think we need to really consider all the issues that they have in serving our citizens.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot more to add, except that we do represent the city of Alamogordo. These are taxpayer dollars. Right now, we're only putting in $1 million. Now, to back up a little, when Rick was here, when Rick Holden was here as our city manager, that's when we decided that, well, the city decided the budget. And I guess it was the chair or the county just, didn't think we were putting in enough money, so they came to speak to Rick. I believe it was Sheriff Black came and spoke with Rick.
Sheriff Black and Director Barney.
And Director Barney came to speak with Rick, and Rick told them, we're not putting in any more money until we see how this thing goes. This was the first year that the dispatch center was up, and he said, we're not willing to spend any more money until we see how this is all gonna work. And so they left, and I think even Stephanie was willing to put in a little bit more money, and Rick said absolutely not. And so that was not put in. Now I know the argument right now is gonna be, well, the city should put in 60%, but after everything that's just happened, I'm really glad we didn't put in 60%, because they basically are telling us, give us your money, sit down, be quiet, you're not allowed any input. And when you cancel a public meeting without notice, we're not talking about a nonprofit, we're talking about a government entity. A government entity that was canceled 5 meetings in a row with no public notice. If we did that here, what would happen? The Attorney General would be all over us. The citizens would be all over us. And the comment was made, well, you know, you can't blame Director Barney because you guys aren't following the contract, I think is what the comment was made. And I said, well, how are we gonna follow the contract or discuss any of this when you're canceling almost a half a years of meetings in a row? How are we supposed to get anything done? And in March, as Stephanie said, I literally had to say, it's in an email, that if we do not meet, because they tried to cancel the meeting again, and I said, if we do not meet, I'm going back and recommending that we pull out of TBRDA. And that was the only reason we even got the meeting. Because that meeting, that would have been the 6th meeting in a row. 6th meeting in a row that was canceled. You couldn't do that in a commission. You couldn't, we would be in so much trouble, and yet this is how we were operating. And so I'm concerned, and quite honestly, if I'm to be perfectly honest, I cannot imagine all of this happening and all of these things and going over our head and doing everything that they want anyway, without the intention that they wanted the city to pull out. Because who does that? You can't possibly think that we're gonna give, you know, $1 million, 1.2 million, $2 million, whatever it is in taxpayer dollars, that we're just gonna hand it over and let you say, yeah, you don't get to say anything, we're gonna do what we want. Nobody does that. So I actually think the county wants us to pull out, to be honest with you. I don't feel like they want this partnership. And if they do, then it concerns me that they've done all these things. And I'm gonna say this too, and listen, several of you work up here, I work, okay? And every month, and by the way, a TBRDA meeting can last as long as what, 3 hours? Sometimes 3 hours these meetings last. And every month I schedule time out of my other job, the one that actually pays me something, to go to the TBRDA meeting. Scheduled that time, canceled other things, didn't make other appointments, and then the day of, that meeting was canceled. And that's 3 hours that I could have been doing other things or scheduled other meetings or met with constituents or whatever it is. And that happened every month consistently for months. And I think that we are doing a disservice to our taxpayers if we continue this partnership, or if we even consider continuing this partnership. I've had tow companies tell me that it was better when we had it ourselves. Or can you bring it back? I've had citizens tell me that. I had a personal experience. I know it wants to be dismissed like it's nothing, but I'm gonna tell you something. When you call a dispatch center and you think that a store is being robbed, and you're on that phone for 33 seconds and nobody picks up the phone because there's too many programs that they have to touch and tap into, and you're on that phone for 33 seconds, and it's faster to call the police chief than it is to call a dispatch center, there's a problem. And it's not the dispatchers. I don't think that they're the issue. I think the issue is that we have been so overfilled with technology that they just can't do their job anymore. And so I'm not, from my perspective, as somebody who has been dealing with this for 2 years now, you know, we can blow it off, we can dismiss it, we can whatever, but some of us take this very seriously, especially when we're talking about taxpayer dollars. And we think it's important that we're responsible with it, and this is not being responsible.
A couple comments on this. first off, it took 20 years to get this done. When everybody that pays a cell phone bill pays a portion of the PSAP money or any telephone bill. We worked on this, I know for the last 15 years, we've worked on getting these two joined together so that we could even access that funding. So I would hate to see it end because of a little squabble. I mean, anytime you take two government entities and join them together, you're going to have problems. You got the county side, the city side, we join them together. It's gonna take time to work it out. I don't know all the details like you guys do. You're supposed to kind of share some of that with us, and we don't ever hear about it until there's a problem. But one question I do have, the fact that they renewed his contract. Right here in the JPA under Article 2, it says the board created herein shall enter into contracts for, oversee all operations of, and mediate any and all problems between the parties to this agreement and third parties concerning TBRDA that will serve as an area consisting of the county, city, and Cloudcroft. So basically, that statement, if I'm not mistaken, basically says the county doesn't have any authority, the city doesn't have any authority, that board has the authority. So how did they, that's one question I had, how did they go ahead and extend a contract when the board has never approved it? And then on top of that, another question I had is, it says there's a board, a chair. It's been a minute since we set this up, but it says here that we'll have 4 members, Otero County has 4 members, Cloudcroft has 2 members. And then it says you all will appoint, get to that part, sorry. Board shall, forum, see all aspects. You'll choose a chairperson, a vice chair, and a secretary. So who's in charge of calling and canceling the meetings as far as the board goes?
The chair.
The chair is. So who's currently the chair?
Sheriff Black, but let me address some of the things you did say. The 911 money to join has dried up. The state only gives at least maybe $250,000. We don't have the big funding that was promised of millions of dollars that would come in. So the state only gives $250,000-ish. The rest is up to the city and the county to put in. Cloudcroft doesn't put in because of some agreement that they made with the sheriff's department.
So we would lose $250,000 of funding if we pull out.
No, we lose about $2 million of funding if we stay in. We don't have control. It's very clear that we don't have control because it talks about the renewal and hiring, not of the disciplinary or termination of it. One of the, you mentioned something else and I wrote it down and I don't know where I wrote it down. Go ahead and talk about that.
Basically, that statement under establishments and powers, the board has all of the authority. This was basically structured just like the solid waste authority board that we have.
And to emphasize that, the county attorney in a public meeting at the budget hearings said the question was asked, and he literally said that the landfill's run by the city and they run it however they want. And so
it's not. It's run by the board.
Thank
but
you.
One of the keys there is that solid waste authority board, unless there's an issue, it only meets once a year. And I think that is the key to why that's been so successful. But that's where I'm a little confused, is the way that statement reads. We have no authority, the county has no authority, the board has the authority.
And then I just also wanted, the other comment, I'm sorry, actually, that's not the other. I have communicated with you on 7 different occasions through my weekly recaps. It started in October, it started in November, we didn't meet, so there was no update, and then I started letting you know there were more issues. I still, if you read those emails, I'm very optimistic that we will work through these issues. I called them growing pains, I said all that. So I have communicated clearly through my weekly recaps, especially regarding the lack of service on the fire department. So, you know, I tell you when there's an issue so that you're aware of it. There's no reason to tell you when things are hunky-dory, or else my report would be 100 pages long.
So to answer your question,
Do we hear what the attorney has to say real quick?
yeah, well, yeah.
She was trying, she got cut
I'm
off.
trying to
Okay, go ahead.
answer
Go ahead.
the contract. So, Commissioner Reardon, I I actually do agree with you in your analysis of this contract.
Well, it's
Because
pretty
it's
cut
very clear that it does say that the board shall oversee all operations. The board consists, like, as you said, 4 city, 4 county, 2 Crown. The problem is the county has basically said, no, that's not true, you're just an advisory board, which is not how this contract is written by any means. The way the contract is written is more, to put it in perspective, it's kind of like with how the city manager position is, right? Like you go, you know.
They're an at-will employee, yeah.
Yes, the director is supposed to be essentially their city manager for the board. The board is kind of like the commission, you know, to put it in those kind of perspective. Unfortunately, with what we've been seeing, especially lately, that's not how it's being handled. I would argue that the contract that the county did enter into, violated this initial contract. This contract was the first contract. This contract is with the state. We had to file it with the state. And so that employment contract that says basically that the county, that he's a county employee, to me, that wasn't correct. That contract shouldn't have been worded that way. That's not the way that the contract should have been written, because it should have been a contract with the board. Unfortunately, that's just not how they did it, and the county is basically telling, the city board members, as well as Buckrock board members, that they don't get a say now.
It states it right here under section E, the board shall hire and supervise a director of TBRDA, who shall be responsible for the day-to-day operations of TBRDA.
Right.
I 100% agree, Commissioner Reardon, I really do.
So, I
It's
mean,
just
I
not how it's being
understand,
done.
you know, the board using the county's HR department for the contract and hiring and that portion of it for that employee, because that's how we do
The landfill, that's exactly how we.
Our HR handles the employees, but they're employees of the board.
Yeah, but that's what I was gonna say. The argument was that he is an employee, if I remember correctly, I think the argument was the contract is between him and the county can renew it. They don't need our permission because they
Then
hired.
the board needs to go in and name a director because they don't have one.
Commissioner Reardon,
Well-
we tried several times. This is where we are got to this point.
So,
It's not for lack of trying, we have tried, but I will refer to you to Pamela's email where she clearly says she is the authoritative over all contracts with the county. We cannot address the issues if 6 meetings continuously get
We don't
canceled.
disagree with you. We don't disagree with you, and actually, my argument was, okay, fine, you renewed his contract, but that still doesn't give you the authority to place, like, you can tell me he works for the county all you want, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. If you wanna do this contract with the county, then by all means. But that doesn't mean that because you hired him as an employee of the county, that we have to keep him as the director of TBRDA. Their argument is, yes, you do. Mine is, well, hold on a second.
JP does not say that.
I understand that, but you need to talk to Artie Nichols about that. I was really hoping he would be here tonight.
Maybe that's the answer before we go and pull the trigger to pull out, is the entire board meet with the county commission. I know that's difficult because there would be what, 10 or 17, 10 of us plus all the staff. But before we go and do this, because it took so long to get this accomplished,
I understand that.
and we sit down and we have our attorney and their attorney, and we state this. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but that's pretty cut and dry. It says that the board has the authority, period.
I'm not sure how you're going to get a different answer. They just renewed his contract. One of the things that I said in the last meeting was, so this JPA was done when Brian was here. And I believe Chief Denton. So it was Chief Denton and Brian were the ones that agreed to this. I would have never agreed to it to begin with because I think it was poorly written. But I wasn't involved then, so that's kind of water under the bridge. What I said was, if this is an issue, then let the city take over the HR and administrative portion. We'll be the fiscal agent, and he can report to us. And so what they said was, well, I guess we could talk about that. So then I said, well, let's make sure we put the JPA on the next meeting. And instead of having the next meeting, they canceled the meeting and renewed his contract. listen, I am not fully understanding why they are working so hard to protect him or to ensure his continued employment. But we've heard from 5 dispatchers. I know for sure there's a 6th because I got a phone call. Apparently she couldn't be here tonight. And I know that there's more.
And I think at
And
the
so
end of
we
the day,
have,
we are missing the point.
yeah,
We are putting our citizens and our
Exactly.
DPS and our fire in danger. Chief Ramirez can tell you how many times he has met with Director Barney to try and come up with a solution. We have tried, Chief Kunihiro, I will give you a perfect example of how we are told it doesn't matter what we say. When Chief Kunihiro, when there's a domestic violence call, that puts an officer in a different mind frame. Instead of dispatching that out as requested by Chief Kunihiro, they chose not to do that. That's putting our officers in danger when they show up to a call and they're not sure if it's a domestic or not. Because they have to go through a billion questions, and Commissioner Reardon, you even expressed concern about having to call and answer a million questions and not get the information dispatched to the police department. So we're missing the point as far as Director Barney. As I said, he's intelligent. I think that his contract was up. It was the perfect time to move us all forward. And it has clearly been stated that that is not the direction. I don't have any issues with Director Barney. I have issues with the way this was all handled and how our fire department and our police department are putting their lives on the line, and our concerns with that is just irrelevant to the point where they are continuing the employment of the individual who continuously disregards, not me, not the mayor, who continuously disregards the men and women on the street, who continuously disregard Chief Kunihiro and Chief Ramirez. That is the point of this whole thing. We can pull this back, we can pull it back for cheaper, and we can do it, and we can have control over it. We're stuck with this for 2 more years.
I have a comment. Dr. Hernandez, if we do this, logistically, how does that happen? Do the dispatchers go someplace else?
No, we would hire our own dispatchers.
And where would their center be? Where would their operations center be?
Currently, it'd be where it was when we had it at the police department.
And that could be operational how quickly?
So we would have to give 6 months notice per the JPA, and we would have it up and running within that 6 months.
Thank you.
How much money would it cost us to get it back up and running?
It would cost us a little money because we would want to update and become completely off the servers of the county.
How much money?
About, we're getting the final cost, but when we met with bids, they're talking about $300,000 to get our servers and everything off of the county, because we would want to run our own, and I can't, maybe Ella can talk more about the technical side of it. But I have to also remind you, they're asking us to pay 60% of a $4.2 million and us not having any say. So there is a offset. What are we willing to take, the risk of giving them our money and us not having any say? Or is it, at least if we put in some money, put additional money to get it back, we have say over it?
One of the questions, I heard the word control multiple times in this conversation. And it seems that we want to be in control, and
No.
it seems they want to be in control.
no.
And bottom line is the board's in control.
The board is not in control.
Well, but the
They
board
have
should
not,
be,
they have not acted like responsible citizens.
but the
And so
board,
therefore, there's no control.
the
No,
board,
we do not
when
wanna
the
be in
chair,
control.
when the chair cancels the meeting, then the board needs to start asking the questions, saying,
It's
hey,
true, but
why,
they're not doing
why
that.
did we cancel it?
And they're not doing that.
And I'm not sure how it's set up.
Actually, that's not true. I did ask. I asked several times. I told you that I asked several times, and I finally had to threaten that we were going to pull out of TBRDA if we did not have a meeting. So this is not about control. This is about, first of all, being responsible with over $1 million just right now. They want more. And second of all, the safety of our citizens. We can't, there is such a high turnover, ridiculously high turnover. Okay, that comes down to leadership. We wouldn't accept it here. I don't think the county would accept it in any of their other departments. And listen, I agree with Stephanie. He's very smart. He is very smart. He's very knowledgeable. but there is so much technology over there that you can't do your job. There's no way they can do their job because they're too busy pressing buttons, inputting information, asking questions. My goodness, we have a dispatcher of the year that quit. That should tell you everything you need to know. And I remember the Facebook post, and I was like, wait a minute, isn't that, yeah, it is. We have, cause this is not about control. Nobody wants to control anything, but we want a seat at the table. If we're going to spend that much in taxpayer dollars, then we should get an equal seat at the table. And quite honestly, we were never given a reason why those meetings were canceled.
When you ask that question.
We can't ask the question.
We as a governing body need to write a letter or whatever, say, hey, we need an answer on this.
Sorry, do you have a question?
What legal ramifications do we have?
And it does say in here that
As far as what?
I mean, to get the situation rectified as far as the contract.
Okay, so as far as the contract goes, all we have to do is a 180-day written notice, which I actually,
that's to pull out.
we can draft it, I can draft it actually in 5 minutes. And we give it to the board, okay, so we have and it's just a letter saying, hey, we're withdrawing from this. We don't have to give an explanation, because there's nothing in here that says that we can only withdraw under certain circumstances. That's not in here. Is all we have to do is a 180-day notification. The one thing I do want to raise, is that we had people talk, some of the, dispatchers that left about, the leadership and about, hostile work environment, stuff like that. Because TBRDA is a board, and because we are joint, it's like a co-op idea, we, as the city, we would be held liable should anyone sue. And from a lot of what I've heard, I do have some serious concerns concerning liability issues for the city, when it comes to this kind of stuff. Additionally, if our police officers and our fire department, they're not getting the accurate information, if they or if they're, called out late to a call and someone, God forbid, someone passes away, it's gonna come back to us. Because what's gonna happen is they're gonna sue TBRDA, the board, they're gonna sue the county, they're gonna sue the city. All of this is gonna be a joint lawsuit, and we are gonna have liability to it. So I did want to mention that that's another thing that I know, as we've had these conversations, it's been a huge weight on my shoulders as the city attorney, and it's something that I've really thought about hard, because I am concerned with some of what I've been hearing, about the concerns. But as far as liability with this contract, and us pulling out, there really isn't any.
I mean, as far as the board in itself, what is it that they can do to override?
The board can't do anything if we say we want to withdraw and we give them that notice, there's really nothing that the board can do to us.
No, not, I mean, the board has them saying,
To
if
rectify
they're the
the
ones that's supposed to
situation.
have the control or the power, that's what I'm asking is.
So can we enter negotiation?
So that was the conversation that we were supposed to have on April 17th, is to update the JPA to allow the board, the TBRDA board, to have, authority over TBRDA, not the county. That was the discussion that we had, and that was the agreement, and they canceled the meeting, but I'm just gonna.
Well, I understand that, but if this is
Legally
what.
speaking, if you're asking, can we sue, or?
I'm not asking to sue, I'm just saying, if the board is already in control, or they're supposed to already be in control.
This JPA is the one that's in effect, the
Right.
one we have right now.
The one that's in your
That
packet.
statement says the board has control. There's 10 members of the board.
That's what I'm asking, as the board in themselves, what is it that they can do to override the re-signing of this contract?
Or Barney's contract?
Correct.
Again, they would have to, in theory, they should vote on it, right? The problem is that's not what they did. And
Because what I'm asking is if there's 8 members, or 10 members, correct? 10 members?
Yes.
And if there's 6 members that don't wanna renew his contract.
And that was the vote at the April 3rd, that was where it was heading, a 6-4 vote, and that's when everything got canceled. That was where it was heading.
The issue is they've already signed the contract, so anything we do now is in violation of that contract if we try to. Now, he can be terminated without cause. I guess, I don't know, I'm so confused over this now that I'm not even sure.
Where's Clapcroft at on all this?
They
They
must-
have two seats, they have 2 seats.
Chief Ramirez, I'll let him, he has a better relationship with them.
So, talking with Chief Werschein from Cloudcroft, he has actually given out some positive reinforcement on that, talking about would it be better to put suspension in place for Director Barney, but then at times when he gets information, and he also too gets not the correct information for his service for Cloudcroft, then that is also showing that there's lack of that coordination. So pushing forward on that, he's willing to support this on getting better with the city on that.
Has the volunteer fire departments in the county, have been having the same issues as you all have?
So, Ed, it's a good point, Commissioner. So, the other night, for example, on Saturday evening, when we had the call in the canyon up there for the hiker that fell. So, originally, this call initiated through county side at about 7 o'clock in the evening. We actually have, the city has a certified technical rescue team, a road team, to go up and perform these kind of duties. We were not dispatched or notified by no county member whatsoever. It was the AMR supervisor who actually knows the conditions of what we have within the department, and that wasn't made until 10:30 at night. So this gentleman that was up there had severe injuries to him and basically was up there all this time waiting for help to come to him. And because of the coordination, as Commissioner, as you mentioned, is the county getting the same things? Why wouldn't the county have gone through dispatch to say, because they know what we have, why wouldn't they have gone and called us immediately to be dispatched up there? Again, the same thing with the shooter's fire, the nightclub. Same thing, I received a call from Dr. Hernandez about that when they're fighting the fire, and she questioned me, do I know anything about the fire? I said, I do not. She sends me a Facebook post. I said, well, when I looked at the timestamp, I'm thinking by the time I get there, it's probably gonna be a burnt pile of rubble. As I drive out there, they're still actively engaging in that. I went to the actual county chief and asked, why were we not dispatched on this? This is literally right outside city jurisdiction. We have capable units to come and help. And we stayed there till almost midnight that night assisting them with this. But again, it's that lack of coordination. And going back to the comments that were made earlier, when we sit in these board meetings and we have these discussions about, let's meet, let's discuss county members, city members, and have discussions so that we can work on the JPAs and come up with both sides of the city and county come into agreements. All of a sudden, all county members say, oh, I value him very highly, but yet in my personal attributes I've met with them, they basically say the exact same things, that they're lacking in coordination, they're not getting the response, they're getting the issues over and over.
Previous question?
I actually have a question.
Yes.
So what are the changes to the JPA that you're actually referring to?
They were actually simple changes that in the JPA and the contract that Director Barney, I guess I should say the director reports directly to the board, and that the board has authority to hire, supervise, discipline, and terminate. Those were what we requested. It wasn't a long, lengthy paragraph. It was just to get the board to have that authority, because if you look at the JPA, his contract, his job description, they all say something different. And so we wanted to get them in alignment with one another and to make sure that he is clearly like the county manager, like the city manager, he is clearly an employee of the board. And so I'm going to leave you with this. You don't have to listen to me, you don't have to listen to the mayor, but I do ask that you take real consideration with what Chief Cunningham says and with Chief Ramirez, because they are the ones who, I don't deal with this on a daily basis. I don't get the wrong calls, I don't get the issues, they do. And I'm just gonna request that you weigh heavy on their words.
I still just, with that statement under establishment and powers, I don't see how that contract that they signed with him is even legal. Because you guys as a board have never approved it.
Because they insist that he is a county
Well, he can be a county employee, but he were we gonna pull that down there at the landfill and say these are all our employees?
Listen,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I do, but you need to talk to, this has been going on ad nauseum, and it's getting old. It's not, I have never, well, maybe once or twice, but as a rule, I've never seen one person cause so much drama.
I have.
Me too,
The,
in the past. But it doesn't happen often, and this is ridiculous. This should not be this way. It's not, it's not, it shouldn't be this way.
I personally feel we should try to sit down with the county commission and the city commission and their board, which is gonna be difficult because it's a lot of people to get in the room, but, and find out why, because I mean, it even states in this JPA that you guys will only meet one time a year.
Well, all I can tell you is,
So
But we
you guys
have-
have canceled 6 meetings, but it
It
states.
does say that the board agreed that we would meet monthly for operational purposes. So although we can do more, it says at a minimum, we have to meet once a
It says
year.
the board will meet once annually, every March, or at the call of the chairperson, upon the proper notice in compliance with the Open Meetings Act.
I mean, to sit down all together, I think is a great idea, and the only reason I say this is that if we set up the meeting and then they cancel, then we have our answer.
We have our answer.
oh, I don't think they're gonna cancel.
Now, I'm gonna just go back to, they refused to meet.
Right, and I totally understand that, but to me,
And so are we
it's
gonna
it's us
continue?
demanding a meeting, or
They'll have a
we'll have
meeting.
our
And
answer.
it's
They'll
gonna
have a
have a
meeting.
little more pool coming from the entire governing body than just the 2 board members, you know what I mean?
Four.
Four board members, sorry.
But I just wanna say, we can set it up, I have absolutely.
Not that I
but
discredit your guys' comments by
I just
any
wanna
means
say,
whatsoever.
I coordinated the last meeting, and it took like 4 months. Are we going, we have no recourse in these 4 months for anything.
According to this JPA, we do.
Agreed, we can't, I mean, I know I feel like I'm arguing with you, but I'm not, it's just the same arguments that we have had with them. And it's just very frustrating to be told,
You know, honestly, if
as
we were.
frustrated as you are, that's as frustrated as we
If
are.
we were to approve this tonight and pull out, we're still 6 months down the road before we can legitimately pull out and get ours set back up. So if say it takes 30 days for us to be able to sit down, which that's probably being a little optimistic, but to sit down with the county and the board, you know, and figure out exactly what's going on, why we're doing what we're doing, or why they're doing what they're doing, you know. I've
I'm
always-
just not sure how you're gonna get
I
a
was
different
always
result.
under the impression that like.
You have one of the commissioners that's on that board, there's only 3 county commissioners, and one of them sits on the board.
But like, you know, Chief Ramirez's comments about and I always thought we had JPAs in place, for mutual aid, like, such as the shooter's fire. I thought we already have all that already in place.
So, coming into this, Commissioner, from my understanding, it's always been a gentleman's agreement with mutual aid with the city and county. We were talking about going into automatic aid. I'm all for automatic aid with the county, however, I do have some concerns. It would benefit us on the city side and county side. However, when I've asked for certification levels, because as you heard Lieutenant Stroop tonight talk about, we are an IFSAC accredited department, my concerns is what am I getting coming into the city?
Theirs is a little different because theirs is a volunteer type deal. Trying to get them, force them to get certifications and stuff is a little different.
Correct.
Where ours are hired, we can say, hey, you either meet this or you don't have a job.
Correct.
You know, theirs, we tell them that and they're like, we'll see you later, we're just here for free. So, I mean, I can understand that a little bit, but, you know, honestly, in my opinion, who cares who puts the fire out, if it's us or them, or if it's a joint effort? You know, we're all here to serve the same purpose, you know, to protect
So
infrastructure.
I'm just going back to the joint meeting, I just wanna read Pamela Hetner's email that she says, so I, as a signatory on the employment contract and person designated to handle employment matters for all county employees, renewed his contract yesterday with the knowledge and support of the Board of County Commissioners.
Those are her words.
the county though, how did the county approve his contract? Did they do it in a meeting?
I don't know, that statement concerns me, but that's not our issue.
If they did it, then they violated the Open Meetings Act because they didn't approve the contract in there. And on
Not
top
our
of that,
problem.
the contract is supposed to be approved by the
I
Borough Board,
understand that.
not Otero County.
That's why we're here
Yeah.
in an open meeting talking about it. That's not our problem. We can't police the county. If they, that statement is terrifying to me, but if that's actually what happened, then that sounds like that they spoke outside of an open meeting. So, but that's not our issue. Our issue is do we want to continue this? And I think by continuing this, we're dismissing,
What's the BOC's?
5 people, right? We're dismissing
Board
5
of County
people
Commissioners.
Oh, okay, the BOC's.
that had serious concerns. I know that there's more than 5 people, but there's 5 people that were willing to get up here publicly and speak about this. And I'm gonna tell you something, sitting in those meetings, you have no idea how these people have been maligned. You have no idea the things that have been said about them. I think it's shameful. And you have a leader of an organization that has no decorum, that doesn't take responsibility for anything. Everything is always someone else's fault and is perfectly willing to throw people under the bus when necessary. You heard tonight that he had a traveling dispatcher staying at his house. How inappropriate can you possibly be? If we find that acceptable, then that's fine. I don't find that acceptable.
We're not saying we find that acceptable by any means.
And I don't see where it's going to get any better meeting with the county on this. I am more than happy to collaborate with the county on other matters, but on this matter, we simply don't agree. And I don't see it getting any better.
As far as.
Yes, let's
We're
just
still-
call for a
we're
vote.
still-
We're calling for a vote.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion on item 11?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Robinson to
What's the motion?
approve, what is the motion, to approve pulling out of TBRDA?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Robinson to pull out of TBRDA. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Can we put up the vote, please?
This is to pull out, right?
This is to pull out of TBRDA. And motion passes 4-3. We are, can I just see who? Okay, thank you. All right. We're gonna move on to appointments to boards and committees. That's item 12. Airport Zoning Board, I have 2 current vacancies. An application by Justin Purvis was received. If appointed, this would be his first term. Does anybody know Justin? Is Justin here? Anybody have any objections? Okay, if not, I'm gonna appoint Justin Purvis to the Airport Zoning Board. Senior Volunteer Program Advisory Council, there's 3 current vacancies. An application by Patricia Cox was received. If appointed, this would be her first term. Does anybody have, is she here, Patricia Cox? No objection, I'm gonna go ahead and appoint her. And Alamogordo Public Library Board, 2 current vacancies for county appointed representatives. County appointed representatives must live in Otero County, but not within Alamogordo city limits. They must be appointed by the chairman of the County Board of Commissioners per Article 16-02-030 of our Code of Ordinances. I do not believe we have anybody, so, we may want to make the county aware of that they have 2 vacancies to appoint. Okay, with that, we're gonna go on to item 13, adjourn into executive closed session in compliance with 10-15-1 to discuss real property sale of the fairgrounds parking lot. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion from Commissioner Burnett. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Hathaway. Can we put up the motion?
Okay, I'm sorry, can everybody have a seat? We're not done with the meeting just yet. Thank you. I'm sorry, so that was Commissioner Burnett made the motion and second, Commissioner Hathaway.
I'm sorry. And motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
None of them had to stop for that.
Well, I'll be here.
Yeah, she'll be there too. I was sweating.